I've been selling real estate for over 25 years. A lot of people don't understand the value of a title company and why the sellers are paying high premiums at the closing table. So today I wanted to come to First American Title, and we have Lindsay and Deb here to show you why the title company is such an integral part of a closing.
Yeah, so title insurance, that policy will last the entire time that you are in ownership. So when a seller purchased the property, there's a likelihood that the seller provided that. It's designed to provide marketable title. There is an additional protection that we add on called owner's extended title, which will remove exceptions 1 through 4 on the final title policy. I've been in this business 23 years, so I still learn every day. The majority of title claims where we see buyers suffer losses is usually under the owner's extended coverage portion of the policy. Why I think that serves the seller well to provide the best title insurance possible is because the likelihood of them coming back to a seller to cure a title default is much less if they can work with First American, file a simple claims form. We handle our claims in Colorado and get the problem resolved.
When Debbie mentioned OEC, owner's extended coverage, that's what it's covering. The liens, the survey to make sure you actually own the property that you think you're buying. We have some properties in Colorado, up in Red Feather and in the mountains that people could be built on, your neighbors could be built on your property. So we're gonna be looking for a survey to make sure that you actually own and that your neighbors haven't encroached on your property. Usually if it's lot and block in a neighborhood, a new build, we are gonna be fine without a survey, but we are just making sure that the buyer is protected in all cases, that they own what they think they own and that they don't have any other liabilities that were attached to the seller.
Yeah, I'll give an example of that. So we had a First American title insurance policy that was probably 20 years old, but the buyer did get owner's extended coverage. So roll forward 20 years, there was a survey required. It was in LaPorte, Colorado. Daughter was buying from mom, and it was discovered that mom's house was actually improved about 10 feet on the neighbors. So 20 years later, mom is able to file a title insurance claim with First American. First American then worked with the neighbor, did a new survey, and got the portion of the property that the house was on deeded over so that that house is not encroaching anymore. That was a perfect example of a title insurance claim. It was unknown by all parties. Most claims are unknown, even to us, because they're not anything that's recorded. But man, that policy was good 20 years later, and it saved them lots of money, and it was a very smooth process, again, because we handle our claims right in the state of Colorado.
Yes, and that's huge. First American we are our own underwriter, so we have reserves that are going to be able to pay these claims, because unlike car insurance where you may be an offender bender and it may be a few $1,000s, we may be talking about a few $100,000 when it comes to a home being built onto somebody else's property, replacing a roof, which is something that has had to be done, moving fences, and there are just a lot of things that go into it. So even though title insurance comes as another fee that you feel like you have to pay as the seller, in most cases in the state of Colorado, the seller will be paying. It's something that is so important for the seller's benefit, and that they can just walk away from the home and know that everything was taken care of. And if something should appear after the fact, the buyer is protected by our title company. So that's just, it's a peace of mind. And it also is required that you have title insurance for the lender. It is required. You have to get a lender's policy because they want to know that they are in first position of any lien or any other debt that would be attached to the house. So that's why it is required.
We earn our premiums when the deal closes, so that is when we collect our premiums. We also have what's called a 5-year reissue rate. So if you've had title insurance in the last 5 years, we're going to discount that price to you as the seller, and that does happen automatically. You don't even have to ask for it.
which is happening a lot right now because the rates have been fantastic over the last couple of years, so everybody refinanced. And so because they refinanced, sellers are only paying 50% of what they would normally have to pay had they not refinanced in the last few years.
So Lindsay and Deb, can you share with them and give them an idea of what an owner's title policy with the fee schedule is like for the buyers or the sellers?
Yeah, so generally, as we said, the contract is tradition in Colorado that a seller will pay for the owner's policy. The contract does allow for a buyer to pay, and that's based on a basic schedule of rates. We file that with the Division of Insurance. It's filed every few years, and it's filed for the county. So our rate schedule is for both Larimer and Weld, and we can always provide that. And it is based on the sales price of the property. A buyer will pay for that lender's policy, and because we're issuing one policy to the seller, we call it a companion policy for the lender, and that lender's policy will be discounted, and the buyer generally pays for that because it's a requirement of their loan.
So the price is not necessarily a percentage of what the sales price is. It's all a rate fee, but you'd be looking at anywhere from probably $2,000 to $3,000 is what we're seeing, with the average prices being between, now we're probably more to the 5 to the 7.
Right.
I would normally have used the example of $250,000 to $500,000, but now we've kind of bumped up with appreciation in Colorado. But so you'll be looking at a couple $1,000s, no more than 3 or 4. It just, I mean, if you get into the millions, of course, which hopefully Tracy will be selling all sorts of houses up in the millions. So let her know if you have one.
Yeah, and we can always give those fees, and Tracy's very aware of the fees to you up front. We don't want any surprises for you at the closing table.
Here at First American, man, you have access to our closers. Everyone, anytime you have a question, they're here to answer them and guide you through super smoothly. Our closers at the closing table, they have everything lined out for you. But what was important to me was people don't really understand the amount of liability that is placed on the title company. I think it's kind of an unknown factor that you guys are such an integral part of the closing and transferring. They're here to protect you, all parties.
Yep.
They're here to protect me, you know. So I do appreciate First American and Lindsay and Deb. And if you have any questions regarding closing, title insurance, make sure you give them a call. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.